In the broadest aspects of communication, much work has recently been done to clarify theories and make them workable. The era we are entering might well be characterized as an era of communication. This film will touch in the most elementary way some aspects of the subject that are of daily concern to all of us.
The notion of feedback is all pervasive in contemporary culture, a technical and behavioural mechanism which today works on all levels of the media, from reality TV shows to the construction and broadcast of a news event, to everyday email exchanges and social networking activity.
It is black or white.
Okay, today I'd like to talk a little bit about feedback. And I'd like to oppose it to the notion of a sort of top-down media. That's a media where we sit as passive objects consuming. So feedback is basically a notion that was invented, it's a neologism, and it was invented in the late 40s as a term by a man called Norbert Wiener. What Wiener did was he periodized he retrospectively sort of went back and said, well, really, the cybernetics is based on something called the kybernetes. He's a Greek sailor, and he's in a boat, and he's got knowledge of the tides. He's got, he knows about the wind. He knows how the vessel operates, so he can guide the ship into port. Mm-hmm. So it was the idea that cybernetics was something to do with guiding, a guidance system. And of course, what the kybernetes is doing on the prow of the ship is he's anticipating what would happen, and changing his behaviour in accordance to say maybe a change of wind or whatever. So that's essentially the notion of feedback.
Here is Claude Shannon's diagram by which almost any communication process can be schematically represented. The information source selects the desired message out of a set of possible messages. The transmitter changes the message into the signal, which is sent over the communications channel to the receiver, where it is decoded back into the message and delivered to the destination. Every such system contains noise. Noise is a term used in the communications field to designate any outside force which acts on the transmitted signal to vary it from the original.
Now, what Wiener did was he managed to create a whole sort of paradigm in his book Cybernetics, or Control and Communication in the Animal and Machine, from 1948. And what the paradigm did is it started in that, indeed, with this mythical character in the Greek times, and it went right through to the modern day, positing lots of different types of feedback mechanism. So one of them, which is a mythical one, of course, which is also very poetic and very beautiful, is the idea of the Golem of Prague, who was a sort of a man who was magically animated, a robot before the realization of technological possibility of robots. So he charts periods in history, in the technological development of people, which use different sorts of feedback mechanisms. And I'll mention two. And the first is the idea of the governor, which comes from the 19th century, and this is something which allows a steam engine, for instance, to let off steam so that it doesn't blow up. So it regulates the pressure of the engine, and you may see, if you ever go to transport museums, that there's a sort of a steam engine with these two balls that rotate quite dramatically, and that's actually what the governor is. And the second important one would be the idea of a servo mechanism. Now, a good example of a servo mechanism would be a thermostat that you have in your central heating system. So what that does, and it's a kind of a technological innovation, is that it regulates the whole environment. So that's it understands what temperature a human being is most comfortable at and regulates accordingly.
A choice of two gives one bit of information. This is the amount of information that one on-off circuit can handle at one time. It can be on or off. 2 bits of information is the amount 2 circuits can handle. There is a choice of 4 possible conditions: on, off, on, on, or off, off. 3 circuits can handle 3 bits, or a choice of 8 possibilities. 4 circuits, 4 bits, or 16 possibilities. 5 bits, 32 possibilities. 6 bits, 64. Amount of information increases as the logarithm of the number of choices.
But one thing that's also important is this idea of that information becomes divorced from its carrier. Now, a good example of this would be actually Morse code, which was one of the first binary systems that used, and this is how Morse code worked, of course, is it was a disembodied message. Samuel Morse had great difficulty getting people to fund Morse code because it seemed so spectral, it seemed so disembodied, it seemed so peculiar.
The system calls for the key to be either up or down. The code calls for a dot or a dash. The current flows, it ceases to flow, it flows. It is black or white. It is stop or go.
We have an understanding of everything being encoded, of everything, you know, of reality actually at a very fundamental level. It has something to do with a code.
On or off, one or none, go or no go, or black or white.
So again, on a biological level, there is a code to DNA. You know, we are encoded, our very bodies are encoded.
It is black or white.
So all of these things come together in this idea of what Catherine N. Hales calls the ontology of the code. That it's actually an ontological claim that the generation of Wiener, etc., have been making, and this is that we are that the reality itself is something to do with code.
In any communication system, the receiver must be able to decode something of what the transmitter coded, or no information gets to the destination at all. If you speak Chinese to me, I must know Chinese to understand your words. But even without knowing the Chinese language, I can understand much of your feelings through other codes we have in common.
We no longer believe that we live in a very complex world which we, you know, are given to understand, you know, that we can kind of understand with enough studying, but rather that complex things run from very simple systems, like a simple binary system, to complexity. And so there's a different way of looking at reality once we start to understand the world as encoded.
But there are also many examples of times when the message has been conceived and the signal sent long in advance of understanding or acceptance of the code employed. In the case of Galileo or Socrates, it did not in time matter that the receivers of their time were not tuned to receive their signal. The ultimate transmission of such a message represents communication of a very complex order. Other high-level communication occurs in very different areas. A wave breaking on a beach brings a world of information about events far out at sea. It can tell of winds and storms, the distance and the intensity. It can locate reefs and islands and many things, if you know the code.